Fathers Who Bother is made possible in part by the contributions of listeners like you. To support Fathers Who Bother, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Fathers Who Bother and become a monthly subscriber today. On the next episode of Fathers Who Bother, I talk to producer and director Justin Rhodes about his powerful new film, It's a Wonderful Plight, why his beat still ain't free, giving birth to an 808, and raising 4 girls. Check it out. Welcome to Fathers Who Bother, a podcast for men who are dad as we want to be. My next guest is an award-winning music producer, educator, and filmmaker from Dallas, Texas. As a record producer, he has worked with everyone from Dr. Dre, Lecrae, The Game, Tyler Kweli, Black Thought, and more. And in 2016, he dove into the world of film and TV, creating the web series These Beats Ain't Free, as well as publishing a book by the same name, and the reality TV show for producers House of Beats. But today he's going to talk to us about this brilliant new film, a hip-hop musical called It's a Wonderful Plight, and his role as a father to 4 girls, y'all. Please welcome Justin L. Rhodes to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me, my brother. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for being here, man. Heads Up, Eyes Open was a beautiful beat. That was one of them. They used to call it gospel-delic.
Yeah.
And digging into like your production discography made me realize how far I strayed from my producer roots. And I'd have definitely had you in Scratch had Scratch been around.
Man, I wish we could turn back the clock with
I know.
12, 13 years. That's cool. Just to know that means a lot.
Yeah, for sure. But like you, I pivoted to covering film. So what inspired your move from production to filmmaking?
Well, I would say, just to clarify, it's not a move per se, not to even try to correct you or whatever. I always want to let people know that it's an elevation because I'm always a music producer, got some records coming out with your favorite artists still, etc. So it's not like a mass exodus as much as it's an elevation. And film, to me, like I just looking at the game, and it wasn't as empowering as I would like it to be, because as successful as I was on the outskirts, people would look at it. It's still something when you have so many other talents and facets in which you want to express your art. When you're a music producer in today's industry, when at least 70% of the time you're not in the studio with the artist creating, like you thought it would be, you're sending beats, they love them, and then they say they're going to use them, and then you wait for the album to drop. It's just a big waiting game. And as much as I love it and I'm still going to do it, I had to start using other parts of my art to be able to control things. Like with film, I think it fully expresses everything I can do in my artistry and the message that I write, comedic timing, the aspects of storytelling. And then you can score the film and use your music in the film as well. And when you have that package, you can shop it. And now people can go on Amazon and watch your film, and you can get your ideas out in a big package that way. Whereas as much as I love production, the situation I was in, it was a blessed situation, but it was a situation that I outgrew. So film is something that I think I can continue to grow in for the entirety of my career. And I'm still, I'm sorry about that. And I'm still forever in the day, at the end of the day, the core of everything I do is based in music production, because I think that's my most dynamic talent.
I know. So the music in the film is all original creations from you?
Yes, I produced probably all of the songs except for maybe one. And, either I produced or wrote pretty much every song in the film, or score, even with the scoring aspects.
Yeah, I tried to Shazam that first one because it was a heater, and I was like, "Who is this?"
Yeah, it's an artist named Saba the Goddess. She hasn't dropped that song yet, but that's a project that. Yeah, I'll text you or contact with you, or give you the info on it once that drops. But yeah,
okay. I was like, wow, I gotta know who this is. So this film, bro, I got literal chills watching it, and it feels super duper timely. Just so y'all know, we're recording this 2 days before Juneteenth, and I feel like the conversations around it are a little bit complex because you have corporations who are running to now jump on the Juneteenth bandwagon the same way they did with Black History Month and Pride Month, and it feels in a lot of ways very performative.
Yes.
Especially when at the same time you have states like your home state of Texas passing legislation to make it to ban discussions of race in the classroom. So once again, in the purest American way, you have one hand not knowing what the other hand is doing. And I feel really privileged to be able to talk to someone from Texas today, of all days, who put out such a poignant film about race and race relations. Talk to me about what inspired making this film and how you went about putting it together.
Well, it's funny. Let's attack first things that you say. Nobody, Greg Abbott and his minion down here in Texas, man, just man, it's horrible. Just just to try to keep it clean, but like you said, just to speak on the performative things. That's the same thing with our character in the movie. I'm gonna get to your question, but I just got to speak on my frustrations with certain things. Like, nobody asked for Juneteenth to become an official holiday to them. It's cool, if people get a day off or whatever, that's cool. But Juneteenth in itself, as much as we celebrate it, it's something that shows that Black people, in the state of Texas too, we've made a positive out of the negative. Juneteenth is really, as much as we love it and celebrate it, it has a slightly negative connotation when you think about finding out that you're free later. So we just celebrate it just because that's what Black people do. So you have this holiday, but nobody said we need to make it an official holiday because it was always official to us anyway. We rocked with it. We didn't care if they rocked with it or not. But what we are asking for is reparations. What we are asking for is for things to be taught to our students in these schools that you send us to. But they make the executive decisions to take away the things that we really want. And I think it's pacifistic allyship. Like, they want to pacify us, saying, "Oh, well, look what we did. We made this an official holiday." Nobody's rocking with it, and nobody really rocks with Greg Abbott either. And you can quote me on that. Like, so it's just it's whack, And so being right from here and being in the midst of so much of that, I do have the platform to really speak on it because I'm in the midst of it. But getting to the film and how the film is so timely, like, in 2019, we were in the American Black Film Festival for a song in a movie called Make It Take It. And just short story long, I was just like, man, we were around Black Hollywood. It was just so inspirational. I was like, man, I want to come back to this film festival and win an award. Not that an award is everything, but I was like, man, I think we can really make our mark here. So I was like, we're going to do an entire musical based off those type of songs, whether it's about melanin, gentrification, just really kind of making it like Schoolhouse Rock or Sesame Street for adults. That's kind of what the songs are based in. So we wrote a script around that. And man, once I wrote the script, I probably wrote it in about a week and some change. And I don't recommend this, but there was no rewrites. It just felt right to me. I was like, man, we wrote it good enough to make it pop. April Patterson, the film's producer, got to work. Found a lot of dope artists that really, understood the mission. And we got to it. So we shot it in about 5.5 days. And the thing about it, COVID came and it kind of, in essence, slowed us down, but it really was God pushing us the way we needed to go. We got real creative with it during COVID, did a lot of drive-in movie screenings. It was really to prove the concept because we didn't leave one of those screenings without people going crazy or, honking and just really saying that this film was everything that it's proven to be. So yeah, that's kind of how the film came to be, man. And there was a lot of God's timing and place and stuff where it needed to be to make the message timely, like you say. Because the main thing that we were kind of inspired by then was the death and the murder of Botham Jean. And by the time the film came out, it was so many other names. It was George Floyd, it was Ahmaud Arbery, Tatiana Jefferson, like right down the road in Fort Worth. And that's just how it goes with us. As timely as the message is, it will always be timely because the cycle always repeats itself.
So I'm trying my best not to spoil any of it for people listening. You need to see this movie. You have to go and watch this movie. But it's like the way you open it. Talk to me. You describe it as It's a Wonderful Life meets Hamilton in a way.
Yeah, meets Hamilton, meets A Christmas Carol or something like that.
Right. And the way that it starts with this conversation between two white guys playing video games, and then you bring it all full circle later, is just amazing to me. how do you think all the people are going to react to the issues that you're raising about allyship and about allyship in America?
I think from the experiences, because one thing that I really even told my producer and everybody, they were kind of like, hey, they wanted to be more inclusive in essence. They were just like, hey, well, we may not want to accept this group. I just didn't care, to be totally honest. I was like, this is a film. We're going to tell it how we want to tell it. This is our film. If people want to get down with it, it's cool. Like, I think it's a lot of films out there that appease, white Americans. And that's just what they are here for. It's always an aspect of, trying to appease. And that's not what this film did. So the responses have been great because I think, and I'm, in so many interviews I say this, but I can't think of a better analogy. Like, this is about the umpteenth time I said it, but it's really like, I think the responses will be positive because what we did was sneak the dog's medicine in his dog food, in essence. Like, when you give them something that they want, mix it in with something they need, and they get everything. The dog food was the hip hop music because people love beats. Like, that's what I really come to find out. Like, the 808 or the bass line, and it's just something about rap and hip hop beats that just captures everybody. It's like musical, it blends everything. And so that is just the captivating part. But embedded in that is a message telling people, about allyship, how they should view it, what really needs to be done. And I think it's one hand washing the other to have a positive response. So every response that we have gotten, whether it's been from Black people, white people, or whatever, it has been positive. I'm not saying that, everybody will view it that way, but I think anybody that wants to make a difference, whether they're Black or specifically whether they're white, the people that we're targeting are those people that are not lost or not trying to be lost, or the people that actually have a chance to be an ally. So the target audience will receive this very well, and we can actually start getting some positive change going in that direction.
How do you feel about American history discourse being outsourced to Hollywood? Because I feel like we're seeing, like, for example, with Watchmen, the discussion about Tulsa exploded because of a TV show. Because this history just isn't being taught, and then we're seeing it, with, even though people complain about them, I think they're still necessary. The slave narratives that come out, the Barry Jenkins' new show, The Underground Railroad. Your film, like, what does it mean that it takes visuals to get people to really understand these things?
It's just how we're wired. It's vibration. We're vibrational people. You can preach to somebody ad nauseum and tell them facts, but it's something about us. Arts has always catapulted or set the movements afire, whether, it's been music or something. So it is something about saying it in an artistic way that gets the point across. I can't really specify as to why, other than the obvious. It's just like people love music, and music really kind of gives you a feeling to go along with that. Because I think if you're just giving people words, that's just dialogue. There's no feelings. But when you do the visual art and then you encompass the lyrics and the music and everything together, it's almost like not only does the person hear it, but they feel it. And it magically, because music is a form of magic, it takes people to a place that it takes them there more than just saying it. Like, you can say, hey, we went through X, X, and X and X, but if you make a song about it, put a little something extra on it, and people are captivated to watch it. It does create a form of magic to where it connects more. And so that's what the arts do. And that's why the arts catapult and set movements afire.
So towards the end of the film, the narrator says, we're seen as kings and queens, nurturing our young, fathers who are present. So tell me about when you found out you were going to be a dad for the first time.
Man, it was... I was 23. That's my oldest child. I have 4 daughters. My oldest daughter is 14 now. And so almost 15. She turns 15 in January. So, but man, it was scary because at that point, I wasn't married, and I had, my mother. It was just, everything had to be perfect, but it wasn't. But I thank God for some of my friends that really just, walked me through it. And it was a very tough, tumultuous process leading up to it. But I just remember, just to be candid, I was in a hospital alone in the sense of my family representation. To be totally honest and candid, I have a wonderful family, but I'm just, this is a podcast where I can be candid. And it was a lot of things that during my first child, I had to walk alone with. Because whether people, mainly my mother just wasn't, accepting of it or whatnot. I wasn't there by myself, but I just remember when my first child was born, and I just remember just the feeling of it. And I saw it. I remember, it was the whole movie aspect, crying, the slow tear rolling down my face, and my life was forever changed, And man, so it really does change you. I remember, it was aspects, even though, we all have to grow, it was selfish aspects of me back then that I couldn't even envision having not a child, let alone a girl. I really wanted a boy, and I thought the world ended when it was a girl. Oh my, all this stuff. But my children are my driving force for everything I do. And yes, Savannah Layla Rhodes, my first child, I remember the scaredness and the shock of it and everything. And I remember the road of walking alone and being scared to tell my mother. I didn't tell my mother for many, many months because I just knew, there was things. Love my mother. That's not, I'm just letting you know the real of it. But when she came, I held my own and I stood up and I was there and I've been there ever since. And I'm not perfect by any means, but for all of my kids, I'm there and I love them. And they are the driving force behind everything I do.
So you mentioned you said your mother wasn't accepting, but you were 23. It's not like you were.
I was 23. Dad. I was 23.
You were a teen dad.
Hey, I think
what was her?
What helped me, because my mother, I have a different. And mind you, what helped me, and that really helped me because, like you said, I was 23. And I just started really, and that moment and start growing into my fatherhood helped me grow in my music, because it's the same thing even with my music. It took plaques, it took a lot of things. I think honestly, even though my family, my mother said they seen plaques and all this other stuff, I think with this movie, it's something about this movie that my mother watched it all the way through and she loves it. It's almost like after 38, I've been on it for so long, they finally really see the magnitude of it. But getting back to my child, like, it just, that helped me to learn that I need to walk my own life, and I'm not going to be perfect, and that's okay. And I think that really helped me come into my own I think once I got over the fact of not caring what my mama thought, certain things, and what my family thought, really not caring about that, it helped my artistry, it helped me as a human being, and it helped me as a father. It really helped me in life when I really let go of living for other people, to be totally honest.
Where were you career-wise in this moment at that year?
It was early. I still was, I was honing my production skill. I still was an artist. Like I said, artistry came first, then production, but I was really honing it. I was deep in it, like, as far as the learning curve part, like, really like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna chase it. I had left school. A couple of my business partners, we were young, but we were some of the first young kids in Dallas to start a music studio. We were deep in it. I still was working at DFW Airport at that time. I just had got the job there. I was working. Once I realized I had a daughter, and as good as I was at music, it wasn't paying the bills then, but I was working my 9 to 5. I go to my studio, and I was deep in that ascension in my music career, as far as like really the come up. It was the beginning of that come up phase is where I was at career wise.
And you mentioned that it affected, how you recorded. How exactly did having a daughter affect your artistry?
Man, I think artistic wise, I did go harder as far as, and man, I will say, because it's funny, because I love all my kids. They all different. I wouldn't say I have a favorite. Some people even go to their point to say that I don't. I love them all equally, but I would say Savannah was unique for the simple fact with her being, my first child. I remember in my single father apartment, I had like almost like, it was almost, now that I look back at it, it was excessive. It was like a shrine in her honor almost. It was crazy. It was like pictures everywhere. And it was, that I look back at it, it was wild. But, just even in the content of my music, it was more positive. I would make songs about daughters and a lot of positive things. And even in my production, it was honed a little. I think I looked at stuff more deeply. It used to be even, artistic wise, it was way more surface level. but just her presence in the earth made me kind of look at things more deeply and with more color.
So how were you adjusting to fatherhood initially? Like you got the baby home. What was a day in the life like for you?
My man, like now I'm a vet at all the stuff, whether it's diaper changing, it's nothing to me. I've had so many kids, but the first one was it was an adjustment, man, because before that I didn't like to hold babies because they'd be so whatever. But I remember rushing home to see her and hold her and all that stuff. And a day in life was with Savannah. It was pretty hectic. I know I had a 9 to 5, so I would have to go there, and then I would have to travel because me and her, Savannah's mom, was together for a little bit. I'm gonna say about a year some change after she was born. So it was tough though. That it was rewarding, but it was tough, because it was a lot of learning curves, and I think that was at the time to where I was young and more, I was set on my career, but I was more immature relationship wise, in the sense of, I saw a lot of things that I didn't like and they were valid, but I was gone a lot, I would work and then I would pursue my dream and then I come, just in time to, put the baby to bed and do things like that. So it was a big adjustment due to the fact that even though you have this career that's your baby, and then once you have your baby is here, but you still have to put those same hours into that career, and it becomes real tough. And then you kind of don't want anybody to challenge that because your end game. Even Savannah's mama at that time, she didn't see the end game, and she became, to me, it's like, how you don't see the end game? I'm doing this for my daughter. I'm like, how can you not? If you don't see it, then you must not be for me. But it's more like growing in the maturity to know that, to really just make sacrifices that are fair. And a lot of times musicians, you got to have people working with you as a musician and a producer because there's so many hours that it takes. But at the same time, you have to learn how to give a little bit too as well, and as much as you love your child, you still have to find that balance that some people say you never find, but you're still seeking, but you just really have to make it as fair and balanced as possible. So it was a big learning curve with Savannah. And when me and her mother separated, having her, on my weekends and still trying to adjust, because my first child, she had a weird sleeping schedule. She didn't go to bed till like 2. It was so odd. She did not go to sleep. And it was just weird, man. But
she's keeping studio hours.
Man, she had those hours because I think her mother had a job that she got off of late. So she was like, I want her to see me when I come home. And we would argue. I'm like, man, nah, y'all need to figure that out because, anyway. But at the end of the day, when I got her, I got those repercussions too. But it was cool. Me and Savannah, we, in some ways, even though I was older, when I had her, we did initially, especially in them times when she would come over my house, we kind of raised each other in a sense. Like she kind of really taught me a lot about fatherhood, and she really challenged me just with her being, my daughter. And she taught me a lot about myself, like the good and the bad. And it's at the end of the day to see she's a very, very, very good kid now, and that's the blessing because there's not a manual to parenthood. And with all of my daughters, they're great, but they're all different, So God bless Savannah because she really, instilled a lot of cool things into me.
These kids are sharp on your sword, man. We were just driving to dinner with me and my wife and my daughter. My daughter's 12. Simple thing. We were having a silly conversation about deodorant and deodorant scents. And the daughter from the back seat was like, Mommy, Daddy, how are scents gendered? And I was like, I stopped for a second. I was like, inherently peppermint is not a female scent. Inherently sandalwood is not a male scent. It's just we attributed, certain scents to men and women, but inherently they aren't. And I had to look at her. I was like, you know what, baby girl, you're absolutely right.
That's a great question.
They are not gendered inherently. A society has assigned certain smells to women and men, but as a scent, vanilla is not a female scent. And I was just like, because my wife and I were talking about deodorants and how the different smells and baby powder, this, that, and she just from the back listening to two of us was like, but mommy, how are scents gendered? And I'm like, from the mouths of babes.
Mm-hmm. they do, and they teach you that you don't have all the answers when they ask those questions, and you don't want to be like, well, that's just the way it is, but that's pretty much what it boils down to, because they want fair answers to their fair questions, and sometimes you're just like, man, that's a good question, and it's just the way it is.
Yeah. So when did daughter number 2 come along?
Peyton came. And let me see, I'm getting old, but 2013 is Nunu, what we call Savannah, came in 2007. Peyton came 2013, man. So yeah, she beautiful as well, man. She's wonderful. Peyton is the I'm trying to see how I can word it, like, because it's just by default, at least in my house, we call all our kids crazy. Oh, you're crazy, you know what I'm saying, and whatever. Yeah. But if it's, man, she's very unique. She's gonna speak her mind. She's wild. She's a slight, at least in our household, because in her mother's, she's the only child, but in our household, she's your stereotypical middle child fighting for everything when she don't have to fight, but she gonna make it a fight. And I just love that about her. But Peyton's super unique, man. It's my chocolate drop, my beautiful baby Peyton. But she's turned 7 here pretty soon in July. So she's 6 now, but she'll be 7 real soon. Oh, that's my free spirit right there.
That's what makes her a free spirit. That's a fun age. I used to.
Well, I'm gonna see. She's a free spirit in here, like free spirit in the sense that she goes back and forth from being free spirit to hard headed. So I guess that's what we're gonna say. But yeah, she's gonna ask why. She's gonna do things her way. You're gonna man, I think she kind of likes being in the thick of things, but she's gonna challenge everything, and it's even things that don't need to be challenged. But she's super unique, and I love that about Peyton. Like, she's the one that always wants to go outside, and I say free spirit too, because she really is the type that when we're running or we going outside, she'll be the one in the field running and jumping and saying all kinds of crazy phrases and this, that, and the third. But in that way too, she's really a physical free spirit, because she loves to be outside, loves to run, and just loves to experience life.
That's awesome. So when 3 and 4 are how much further apart?
3 and 4, like Thelma. What's funny is let me see, 1 and 3 are like Thelma and Louise. And 3, because 3 is my stepdaughter, Mackenzie. She's like, anytime I talk to people, I never, and it's great. The one thing I am proud of is I never in my head, I don't even fathom having 3 daughters. Like, I have 4. Like, Mackenzie is Justin was my daughter as any of the other 3. So she came here, and I inherited a dope child from my wife, and so that's Mackenzie. Mackenzie is 12. So the 12-year-old was the 3rd one. And man, she's beautiful, super smart, can dance, and she's really, really finding her way, man. She's very, very beautiful, very into the culture, as the same way my oldest child is. That's why, like, Peyton and my baby that I'm gonna speak on, Hallie, they like Thelma and Louise, and Mackenzie and Savannah like Thelma and Louise. They together. Mackenzie is deep into the culture, the TikTok videos and just all the stuff. She kind of keep us young, because anything we don't know, they'll help us on it. Like, oh, well, they're saying this, they doing this. And that kind of can help my music and things too, because if you know the dances, you kind of know the wave. I'm going to always stay on my wave, but just them being engulfed in the culture, they kind of like keep me hip as well.
It's interesting to me that your first and your stepdaughter are close in age. What was that like? Did that make it easier blending the families? Because 12 and 14 are relatively close.
Yeah, the only, man, just to be like, if this is a candid podcast, there was no trouble anywhere but with Peyton's mom. That's another story. But everything was cool. Like Mackenzie and Savannah, I remember the first time we went to the movies, it was just, and after that, I remember even Bree at a young age, like, yeah, I just want to go closer and just want to learn. Like, she's a very smart, advanced girl. And so she kind of was looking forward to it. And so they've been like, running buddies ever since. A lot to me and my wife dismay, because it's like they're great and we love them, but them together they like a powerhouse of young mischief sometimes, like young stuff or whatever, but they love each other. And man, so the the toughest part of blending the families, that those are a lot of moving pieces. And with me, having to pick them up and just having a few of them on different weekends, those are a lot of challenges faced, but that I welcome, because these are decisions that I made. But just because you made these decisions, that doesn't make life. That doesn't mean that it still makes it hard. It doesn't mean that you complain about it, but certain decisions and certain paths that you take kind of can make your life harder than what it needs to be. You know what I'm saying? But you accept it and you do what you have to do. But one thing I will say, if it's anything that we set out to do that I'm very proud of, is that these girls love each other. And that was the main thing on why I needed, it's a lot of room for growth, and, a new marriage, and you learn and you do all those things. But the main thing that I wanted to set out, I wanted a platform where our kids can feel safe, no matter where they were at, where they can feel loved by everybody, where everybody can feel valued, where nobody was more important than the other, in essence, where it was all a family unit. And they know that, they come in this house, and no matter what else is going on, like, the girls are loved, they love each other. And I think we really have accomplished that. So blended families is tough, but I think I get a lot of reward when I look at them and see them interacting with each other in the way that they do. And it's all love.
That's what's up. And the baby, when did the baby come?
She came. Listen to this. I'm telling you, she's a star. Hallie Star. The middle name Star is a name. She came, and you. If I'm lying, I'm flying. August 8th, 2018, at 8:08 a.m.
Wow. August 8th, 2018 at 8:08.
If I'm lying, I'm flying.
For those, break down why 8:08 is significant for you, for people who may not, because I don't know if I touched on that in the intro.
Mm-hmm. As a music producer, the 808 is the boom. It's the sub that you hear even in a bass guitar, that low end, but especially it's a sound, the boom, the stuff that really makes beats. Our baby girl got all of that numerology up in her up in her birthday, and she has not disappointed. Like, she is she's everything. She almost, at this point, she the glue, in essence, in some way, to the family, man. She I don't know somebody that young, but that aware, that family oriented, like, just knowing the pieces and how they fit into her life and welcoming that. She's you could just tell that she got it, as far as just her inquisitive nature. And, she's messing around with guitar here and there. Anytime I have in the studio, she's hitting on pads or whatever. She the type, she could be a track star, she could be a bass player, she could be a producer. It's Hallie, yeah, she's great, man. She's really been a blessing to us.
And you named one of your production companies, I forget, 808. It was the 808, D808s.
Yeah, the 808 Studio. How you know that? Was that a Google? Because that's an old school.
I do my homework. Bro.
Yeah, that's old school. But yeah, the 80, I named, man, our first studio was called the 808 Studio. So I'm telling you, Hallie got it. It's not just on her, it's in her, and it's even in her birthday. And I named it after my grandmother. It's my mother's mother, but she's the most beautiful, just nicest person in the world. And what's funny is that she got to meet her. She hasn't seen her since she was born, but she was flying back to Seattle, and somehow her flight, she was able to come up to the hospital and see her namesake that day. You know what I'm saying? And she got to fly out, and that was the last day she was gonna be there. It's like, God, he speaks to me in dates, times, and in significance, like stuff like that. So that was a cool thing.
I love it. So what was it like having that clan during this past pandemic, in the past year, trying to manage all these young
It was a lot. It's always a lot. Like, I don't care how much you it's nothing. And I don't think, my thing is, I never complain, because it's the life you chose and the life you made. And so you just do your best with it. But just always having to account. Of course, that's the job of fatherhood, motherhood. So you're not complaining, but I don't think you got to account for the time you dropping the baby off. I'm talking about during the pandemic and just, all the way to now, it's just a constant state of accountability, not just in your career, because my wife is an entrepreneur as well. But man, it was a lot during COVID, but it wasn't too much different than it was any other time, and when you're dealing with kids, it was a little bit extra because I think it was an adjustment to the homeschool that they were having to do, et cetera, which was perks in some ways because, you didn't have to, take them to a lot of different places, but that also brings up cabin fever. And, that's the first thing kids say is, oh, this is boring. So especially if they're not going to school, don't have nothing to do. You're tasked with entertaining them. When we grew up, we entertained ourselves, but that's another story. So that was kind of like some adjustments that we made, but just in general on the day to day, even now that COVID is it over? Is it done? I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I'm still moving a little bit cautiously. We'll see.
Yeah. So, but even now that I guess, especially in Texas, we opened up so long ago, that speaks to the point of the other stuff they doing. Just a lot of flunkies inmates running an asylum. But man, it's just like I say, it's an adjustment in general, even financially and everything, because we both do well, you do your thing, but being making money, it's a difference between making single person money and making 4 kids money. That's different kind of like, yep. People, they can drive around in certain things. You'd be like, oh, but my child support payment is the same as your Tesla, so it's like, it's just little stuff like that, and just kind of coming to grips with that and understanding that if you want to live the life you want to live with 4 kids, you got to do a little more. You know what I'm saying? Not just financially, but even spreading that time around individually to them. Because I have 2 kids in the household with me, and the other 2, I'm slated to pick them up at certain times, and I try to get them as much as I can, talk to them as much as I can. So it's a lot. It's a lot going on. I'm telling, our life is hectic, but I thank the Lord, because I think, a lot of people, I don't know, they would have folded, but we aren't folding, and we getting better every day. And it's a lot of stuff that people don't see. They see, the positive things you post when you get a placement, and when your movie comes out, or when you get a plat, and then they see the pretty pictures, but they don't see all the stuff that goes in from all parties into just, making it work. It's a whole lot, but it's a blessing. It's a blessing that I'm tasked with.
Right. What was your relationship like with your father?
Man, my daddy, the older I got, the closer we got. Him and my mother, thank God for them. I think they've been married close to 50 years. So that was cool to see that. My daddy, I take after him a lot of ways, because in the quote real world, like, he's the man in essence. He's a mechanic. Everybody knows JL, businessman, does his thing, works his fingers to the bone, does anything for his family. But he came to the house, and I guess he just worked so hard. He just be, most time, because that's what I saw was the house. He just be there chilling, quiet, and then that's when my mama would just do her thing. You know what I'm saying? Which was everything. And he was just quiet, cool. And sometimes, coming up, like, he was the person that led through action. Like, he didn't, I can probably remember one time, maybe when I was young, he told me he loved me, but I knew he loved me. I never had daddy issues or nothing, because, he's working all the time. And even coming up, in those younger 20s where you were super broke and you needed something, he always answered the phone for his kids, and he was always there. He was rock solid, but, he was just, quiet, and didn't really, impose his will internally inside the house. So, my mama got a lot of the brunt of that. But the older I got, I realized how alike we were in a lot of ways. And I learned a lot from him, and I learned a whole lot from him, especially, business wise, being a man, taking care of things wise. But what I was tasked to learn was, affection and other things, affection and other little things and stuff that I'm still learning, because he did the best that he could. But, whatever was lacked by, him and my mother, you got to be thankful for everything that they did bring. But, whatever was lacked, you got to kind of learn even as an adult, because we never stopped learning. But my mother was, my father was and is wonderful. And I'm thankful to still have him. I love you too, baby. That's my boo.
Oh, you mentioned when you first found out you were going to have your first daughter, your mother had some feelings about it. How did your father feel?
My daddy is internally, he probably wasn't tripping, and he wasn't tripping. My daddy inside that house, it's just whatever feeling my mama has is just what he has to go with. It's just, and so that's the pro and the con. Like, he's done so much, he's been there so much, but it's just, with times where it's just like, everybody can grow and nobody's perfect, but in those times, it's nothing. You can be quiet, but you still can impose your will the proper way. It was times where I feel, just to be totally honest, in that nobody's perfect. He could have stepped in and was like, "Hey, we're not gonna go to the hospital with our son," I mean, and I may be talking too much, but anyway, but but at the same time, it's just, just to be totally honest, like, his will is just whatever, however my mama flowed is kind of how my father flowed. And that's just kind of what it was and is, and I don't fault him for that. I mean, you could, but I don't. I just know that's the one thing that maybe, I'm trying to get stronger in my relationships is you don't have to just be the super will imposer in that way. But sometimes you really do need to, speak up on certain things, and not just externally in your business, but internally.
You got to meet people where they are, man.
Yeah, you do.
So bringing it back to the movie, how do you talk to your children, maybe your older ones, about some of the themes you discussed? You specifically mentioned the killing of both Jean and Tatiana Jefferson, raising 4 Black girls. How do you have those conversations with them about what happens in the news to us?
The cool thing, because Peyton's 6, she's not really super there yet. Of course, my 2-year-old, not really. The cool thing is, my 12-year-old, she kind of understands and she feels, what I talk about. And she has kind of more of a growing phase and view. My 14-year-old, I think I led her by example in some ways, and maybe she got some other examples, but she kind of feels the way I feel about a lot of stuff. And I'm happy to say, because I didn't force it down her throat. She just saw how I'm not even trying to take all the credit for it, but I'm just speaking in the way that I conducted myself, the way I view things, the way I view police brutality, the way I view being proud to be Black, etc., whatever. I just feel that my 14-year-old has adopted a lot of those views. And she's the main one, her and my 12-year-old, that I would talk to her about it. So It's almost like I say a little something, and then it's not even that I prompt them to agree with me. I just say my whatever. And specifically my 14-year-old, she was like, yeah. And because of this, and this, and this, it's like she knows and she feels it and she understands. And I didn't like force it upon her. I didn't make her feel this way. I don't know. I think that's one of those things that was a lead by example. She saw my views. She saw how I conducted myself in the views, why I had them, why I make the music I make, why I make the movies I make. And she, I think, sometimes parents will do as I say, not as I do. But in that, she saw that it was no hypocritical nature in my feelings and how I felt about these political issues. So that's what kids do. A lot of times we tell kids things, but if they see contradictions, they may go another way. And maybe she's like that in other ways. But when it comes to my views on being proud to be Black, when it comes to the views of, Blacks getting disproportionately, arrested and treated awfully, et cetera, and the way things are, like, my older kids they rock with me on that. And I don't have to talk to them too much, because anytime I say something, they interject and, they typically agree.
Have you had to have that talk with the oldest yet about what to do if you get pulled over by the police, or what happens if you get stopped on the street by the police?
I haven't. I have subtly, what I'm saying? I need to thank you for reminding me. I need to have that talk. She isn't driving yet, but just she's such a good student and so deserving that I'm sure she'll be, within at least 2 years, she's going to be driving. She's going to be out more. I'm glad that she's a homebody video game playing girl. We worried about other things, but we need to kind of really understand that the age is coming soon. And even as a Black woman, you still can have some of those same things happen to you. So that conversation needs to happen. And what I want to have that balance with telling her not to fear anything, to stand your ground in proper places, to know who you are. But we also have to also be realistic and not try your best not to invite certain things, but also know that even you can be the most upstanding Black citizen in the world and things just get invited to you for the color of skin. So it's talking about all of those facets. Hey, fear nothing, because, that's what we're empowered to do. At the same time, be smart, which is also a slight contradiction to fear nothing. But then there's also, you know what I mean? So it's just like the plight that us as Black people have to go through, you know?
And speaking of plight, so how would you suggest parents discuss your film with their children who are of age to consume it?
Man, I think even before we got on Amazon Prime, before USA Today was speaking of the film, even before all these things happened, people were like, hey, this needs to be put in schools curriculum, you know, just stuff like that. So the discussion, and I really think because music reaches the kids at that level, I think the film discusses itself. Like I almost think that you can discuss it, but I think once it's watched, it's more to be experienced than discussed. Because I think that's some of the problems now, and that's why I made the film, so that it can be more of an experience. You can have discussions afterwards on what you felt, some of the artistic elements, but I think that we're having a lot of discussions and not enough experiences. Because with experiences, which is what I think you do with It's a Wonderful Plight, you can feel it a little bit more, whether you're white, Black, or whatever. And it's a lot of the words that, you know, we're saying all the right words. We know the deal. We know the facts. They're right there. It's common knowledge, but not to be too, you know, clever with it. I'm trying to answer your question, but I really think that It's a Wonderful Plight, the film, should be shown in schools, even elementary, hopefully, but middle school to high schools, it can be shown there, and it is to be experienced. And then the discussions comes after.
Excellent. Well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast to talk about your brilliant film. And,
man, thank you for having me.
And your lovely daughters, and happy Father's Day early.
Thank you.
I hope you get the big piece of chicken and much, much more.
You know, watch this. I'm gonna show you how important Father's Day. When is Father's Day?
Sunday.
Mind you, I kind of knew. I figured it, but I've been so much on this film. Nobody is making a fuss about it, so I don't even know when it is. Like nobody's like, it's not. So maybe I can. And it's all good. We used to that. I probably get some boxers or something. I didn't even know it was this Sunday.
No boxers, no mugs. We protested.
I don't think, and it's okay. I don't know if I got nothing planned. It's all right. But I'm thankful, man. And I really, even outside of this interview, it was a wonderful interview, you know, talking about the things that matter most, you know, my music and my daughters and my music rather. But thank you for real, like for your contributions to this podcast and for your contributions in that magazine, because it's a blessing. Like, you don't know how many people, or maybe you do, but you inspired a lot of people. And I'm one of those people. Like that magazine, I still got them. They somewhere. But, you know what I mean? And that was big for you to do that. Like you would forever be etched in the hip hop and producer community for that. And I'm glad that your new endeavors are dope as well.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. This has been Fathers Who Bother with Justin L. Rhodes, aka J. Rhodes. And this is Jerry Barrow, your host. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
If you're enjoying Fathers Who Bother, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Fathers Who Bother and Twitter at Fathers Who Be. Thanks.